Good evening. It may be about to get easier to pick up more than just beer at the beer store.
New rules may mean the province's beer retailer can sell things like lottery tickets as Ontario's convenience stores get the option to sell beer. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live tonight to explain. Siobhan.
Well, the government says that option will give the beer store more ways to grow their business, but this option is adding a lot of anxiety for existing business owners. You could be hearing the whir of lottery kiosks somewhere new. The beer store has been given the okay to sell lotto tickets. It's part of the accelerated plan to sell more kinds of booze in more places announced last month.
The government is creating the conditions for a more open and convenient marketplace.
Just because the beer store can sell you a Lotto 649 ticket with your lager doesn't mean they will. The retailer is considering its options. At an unrelated event, Ontario's Minister of Mental Health and Addiction said he wasn't familiar with this part of the alcohol sales plan, but
the idea behind it is to make sure that we allow businesses to be as successful as they possibly can be, and giving them those opportunities.
In its new contract, the beer store gets $225 million taxpayer dollars to ease the transition, keep stores open, and prevent layoffs. While convenience stores will have the option to sell alcohol this fall, the threat of more lotto competition adds an extra layer of stress for some.
I don't like it.
Scared about losing traffic to bigger retailers.
The small stores are very slow business, more going down.
At Townstar Food Mart, Danielle Cheng isn't worried if more players want to get in on a corner of the business that doesn't pack a big payday.
A lot of work and make a little bit of money, and if sell more or less, it doesn't matter for me.
On the street, no consensus on whether this gamble will pay off.
It's about time somebody put the consumer first.
It's so convenient to spend your money foolishly.
With booze and lottery tickets in closer reach, the government says there will be help for those who need it.
One of the things I'm a huge advocate for is community-based interventions and help, and low barrier access to help.
The mayor says these decisions are up to the province.
Let's drink and gamble responsibly. Let's go out and support our small businesses, whether they're a corner store or restaurant.
To ease some of the anxiety of a new era for alcohol. Now, technically, the LCBO is also allowed to sell lottery tickets, but the government says there's no plans to do that right now. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Still to come on CTV News tonight, we sit down one-on-one with Mississauga's new mayor to discuss what she thinks are the biggest challenges facing the city and how she plans to work together with the province.
It is a major blow for those trying to save Ontario Place from the province's redevelopment plans.
A legal challenge has failed, but opponents to the plan say they aren't giving up just yet. CTV's Mike Walker has the story.
The fight to save the West Island at Ontario Place has been dealt a major legal blow after the courts rejected an application that would have forced the Ford government to conduct an environmental assessment.
We're extremely disappointed, and we're very concerned with the future of West Island now.
Norm DePasquale is with the advocacy group Ontario Place for All that was seeking the court order at the site of the proposed mega spa. The group had cited concerns over the destruction of more than 800 trees in the aquatic habitat due to filling in the lakefront.
These things are here to protect our environment and to protect our treasured public space, and I don't think the government should be throwing away those laws.
A panel of the Ontario Divisional Court quashed the application, pointing to the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act that the Ford government brought in late last year that exempts the West Island from an environmental assessment. The panel of 3 judges concluding it is plain and obvious the application cannot succeed, and also find that the question of whether to issue a declaration is moot and that the court should not exercise its discretion to decide it.
They introduced the legislation after the start of our legal challenge, and it seemed specifically focused on short-circuiting our action.
The court decision paves the way for the province to move forward with the controversial development that will see Austrian company Therma build a $350 million spa and water park. The province has conducted environmental assessments and consultations for the remainder of the Ontario Place redevelopment. The opposition calls this outcome appalling.
What the government has done is they've said retroactively, yeah, we may have broken the law with this Ontario Place project, but we're passing legislation that retroactively exempts us from those laws.
But argues there are still several hurdles the province must overcome first, including a separate legal challenge and an Auditor General's investigation.
We're hoping that when the Auditor General's report comes out, or when this other court case comes through, there will be so much information released that the government will have to backtrack on this deal.
The Premier's Office and Ministry of Infrastructure did not respond to our requests for comment. Ontario Place for All is reviewing the court's ruling and hasn't said whether they will appeal. A spokesperson for the Attorney General says with there currently being an appeal period, it would be inappropriate to comment on the court's ruling at this time. Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
A live look outside this hour as we turn our attention to the weather. Gorgeous sunshine, very comfortable temperatures, looking like a lovely evening on the water. Let's bring in Jessica Smith with a look at the current conditions. And maybe for some people that like a little warmer, that's going to happen tomorrow.
It is, and then some. We really are beginning a warming trend, Michelle, as we get through the day today and into the end of the week. High pressure settling in, keeping things nice and clear today, but we're seeing the heat start to rise. And as a cold front makes its way through tomorrow, it is going to bring the potential for some pretty active weather. But for now, it is dry, sunny, and really beautiful out there. We're sitting kind of in that mid-20 range. We do have a bit of a humidex value. It's not too intense just yet, but that will change dramatically as we head in towards the next couple of days. A southwesterly wind kind of adding a little bit of a nice flow out there. We saw easterly a little bit early on, and then we're going to see it kind of dissipate as we head into the evening. Through the island, it is a little bit cooler right now. Tonight, pretty close to seasonal. Coming up, your full forecast right now. Back to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. Mississauga's brand new mayor says she's not waiting to be sworn in before getting down to work.
Carolyn Parrish is a familiar face at Mississauga City Hall as a longtime councillor. Now she will lead the city after winning Monday's mayoral by-election. CTV's Sean Lethong is live tonight in Mississauga with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, her focus is housing and social services. Her tools are a mix of charm and force. And Carolyn Parrish says she isn't wasting any time.
This is a very hard city hall to navigate.
12 days before she officially becomes mayor of Mississauga, Carolyn Parrish is eager to set her agenda.
I'm not going to wait till the 24th. I'm ready to go.
Speaking with CTV News, Parrish says she has firm priorities for the immediate future of the city.
Item number one is housing. And I've already spoken to the commissioner, and he's pulling together what he considers who he considers the best developers and builders that build in Mississauga. We're putting a task force together. We're going to start the day after I'm sworn in.
Saying the city's built to its limits, so the task will be rezoning for rental and affordable housing, pointing to over 160 acres along the new LRT line currently zoned for office, and plans for the Heartland Town Centre that would see more high-rises to help address the housing shortage. And she won't shy away in getting the job done.
The strong mayor powers are really good for housing. It's the only time I'd use them.
A former councillor and Liberal MP during the Chrétien years, Parrish won Monday's Mississauga by-election by a comfortable margin despite a crowded field. She's known for having a take-charge and off-the-cuff style, as evident during her election night speech.
We will prioritize sustainable development. I'm not going to read all this. As you all know, I can be quite charming. And you also know I can be quite forceful. Well, I was telling the truth. I can be very forceful. If you look at my history, I've stood up to a few bullies in my life. Deep down inside, I am fairly charming, and I like to be liked. I'm not one of those people that likes to push people around. I like people to come along with me.
During her campaign, Parrish decided not to participate in several debates after she was accused of making controversial remarks early on, something the mayor-elect talked about.
And I thought, why am I doing this? They had about 20, maybe 20 of them set up. And every night that they were doing those debates, I was meeting 80 to 300 people in groups. And that's who I needed to meet, and that's who I wanted to meet.
Her strategy proving successful. Today, she's working out of her old council office for Ward 5.
I need that report from Metamorphosis today.
In a departure from predecessor Bonnie Crombie, Parrish says Mississauga is better off as part of Peel Region. Looking for a new deal from the province, she's already spoken to Premier Ford.
And he was very receptive to some of the points that I've been working on in my campaign, so I can't wait to get downtown and meet him with the other two mayors from the region and push that ahead. Those are two big issues with me.
Parrish cites a recent report which says Peel social services are being shorted over $860 million per year, so a strong relationship with Queen's Park would be beneficial. She says she hopes to point towards her work in housing and social services, and that her mix of charm and force will produce a collaborative approach.
You learn a lot by listening to other people. I used to be a high school teacher, and when you would have one of the kids do a presentation and the conversation that ensued, the kids learned more from each other than they ever learned from the person standing at the front of the room. You just had to facilitate it.
So Carolyn Parrish is currently generating momentum. She officially becomes the mayor on June 24th. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Parking has long been a problem downtown. Coming up on CTV News tonight, why it's now becoming an issue in the suburbs and what some city councilors say needs to be done.
Weeks after a deadly head-on crash on the 401, the province's Special Investigations Unit says the search for answers over what took place continues to unfold. On the evening of April 29th, Durham police were chasing a pair of suspects involved in a liquor store robbery in Bowmanville. The suspects drove their cargo van the wrong way onto the eastbound lanes of the 401 at Stevenson Road, and police followed. The chase ended when the suspect vehicle caused a pileup that killed an infant, the child's grandparents, and a 21-year-old suspect. A second suspect, a 38-year-old man, was seriously hurt and remains in hospital. The SIU says 2 subject officers have exercised their right not to submit to interviews or provide their duty notes. The police watchdog says it's interviewing 19 witness officers and dozens of civilians while examining more than 100 videos related to the incident.
Police are investigating after shots were fired in Scarborough this afternoon. Officers responded to the area of Tapscott Road and Ironside Crescent around 12:45. Police say they located evidence of gunfire and the window of a business was shattered. No injuries have been reported and no suspect information has been released as of yet.
Toronto police say they've made an arrest in a child luring investigation. Police say they executed a search warrant in the Dufferin and King area yesterday. They arrested 38-year-old Fathi Rashid of Toronto. He's accused of portraying himself as 17 years old online and then meeting up with and sexually assaulting a victim who's only referred to as a child. Rashid faces multiple charges, including luring a child, sexual assault, and failure to comply with a release order.
The Toronto District School Board is notifying community members about a cyber incident detected on its network, while saying the impacts appear to be limited. The TDSB says it recently became aware of a ransomware incident caused when an unauthorized third party got access to its technology testing environment. That is a separate system used to test programs before they're deployed. As a result, the board says its actual systems are operating. Officials say they've also notified police and the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, although it's still not clear if any personal information was accessed.
In an update sent to parents, guardians, and caregivers, the board added, "We understand that news of a cyber incident is concerning, but please know that we are doing everything possible to learn more about what occurred and address this situation. Given the ongoing investigation into what occurred, we are limited in the information that we can provide at this time. We will continue to update the community as more information becomes available."
In the push to fix the city's housing crisis and build more multi-unit residential buildings, it seems one important feature is getting left by the wayside.
Now, a group of Toronto councillors are calling for the rules surrounding the minimum number of visitor parking spots at new developments to be addressed. CTV's Natalie Johnson explains.
This is going to be a 35-story building.
In the Parkway Forest pocket of North York, these townhomes are under application to be torn down. A 35-story residential tower is set to be built in their place, according to the local councillor. More than 300 units, but only 5 visitor parking spots. While at the adjacent building, those visitor spots are also full, with no room for service vehicles, deliveries.
Very, very difficult. Most of the time, we get a ticket.
Or simply visitors.
My friends came here. They don't have any visitor parking to park anywhere, so they will go to the Fairview Mall and they will park their car and they'll come here.
Meanwhile, at Bayview and Shepherd, this gas station is set to be redeveloped as a 44-story tower. Only 7 visitor parking spots were proposed. Councillor Lily Chang negotiated 7 more.
Development applications keep right on coming in, and they're all going for the least possible amounts.
A group of suburban Toronto councillors is now calling for a second look at the rules that govern how few visitor spots residential developments can get away with.
We actually sounded the alarm back when the parking zoning bylaw changed a couple of years back, and we've been asking for it to be looked at. But now we're actually seeing the applications that, according to that new bylaw, bring entirely too few parking spots, and in particular visitor parking spots.
Arguing there are far fewer parking options in North York, Scarborough and Etobicoke compared to downtown when it comes to paid lots or street parking.
Further complicating the push for parking is Provincial Bill 185, which is designed to incentivize the construction of more homes during a housing crisis. The legislation limits the abilities of city to require certain numbers of parking spots in residential developments.
Fewer and fewer people need residential parking spots. What is distinctly different is the need for visitor parking up here. That we're still going to need.
Calling on Toronto's top planner to come up with both a strategy and a solution for the suburbs.
We'll wait for the staff to come up with some very scientific-based recommendation.
Welcome news for any non-tenant stuck parking illegally because there are too few spots for all the drivers and deliveries.
Very hard. There is no parking here. I always park on the fire road, and sometimes we get a ticket here too.
As City Hall sets out to revisit visitor parking. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
So far, Canada's wildfire season has not been as bad as last year, but the risk is projected to be high across most of the country this summer. The federal government gave an update today.
There are now 69 active wildfires burning. To date, 500,000 hectares have burned. Now, but in spite of the situation, the good news is that the number of fires is well below average for this time of the year. It is also well below the 10-year average for the total area burned for this time last year as well.
The minister says Canada is currently at a national preparedness level 2. That indicates wildfire activity is increasing within one or more jurisdictions, while the demand for firefighting equipment is light in other jurisdictions. But multiple regions are at an elevated risk due to the hot, dry, windy conditions. The key areas of concern include northeastern BC, northern Alberta, south central Northwest Territories, and northern Quebec.
The Prime Minister has now arrived in Italy for the annual G7 Leaders Summit. The three-day conference kicks off tomorrow in Apulia. The leaders are expected to discuss Russia's war on Ukraine and the war between Israel and Hamas. In addition, Justin Trudeau will focus on clean energy transition, misinformation, and foreign interference. He is also expected to hold bilateral meetings with other leaders. Canada is set to host the G7 Summit next year. The PM will also attend the Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland on Saturday and Sunday.
A warning about this next story. It contains disturbing content. The United Nations inquiry has concluded Israel and Palestinian militant groups have both committed war crimes since the deadly October 7th attack in Israel and the subsequent declaration of war against Hamas. The inquiry relates to events up to the end of 2023 and indicates both sides routinely disregarded international law. The commission says war crimes committed on October 7th included intentionally attacking civilians, murder, inhumane or cruel treatment, and taking hostages, including children. In the first 2.5 months of the war, the commission says Israel also committed war crimes, including murder or willful killing, inhumane or cruel treatment, and using starvation as a method of warfare. The inquiry says Israel also committed crimes against humanity because of the immense civilian losses. Both sides were also found to have committed sexual violence and torture. Israel has rejected the findings. Hamas did not immediately respond to a request from Reuters for comment.
Hundreds of rockets were fired from Lebanon today toward northern Israel. The Israeli military said about 215 projectiles were detected. Some were intercepted, and several fires were caused by the strikes. It happened hours after Israeli airstrikes killed 4 officials from the militant Hezbollah group, including a senior military commander. In Qatar, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said today efforts are continuing to broker a ceasefire agreement. He says Hamas has requested changes to the proposal, some deemed workable and some not.
A missile strike in a city in southern Ukraine killed at least 9 people and injured 29 others. The Russian attack hit an apartment block in an administrative building. The city is the hometown of the Ukrainian president. After the attack, Volodymyr Zelensky said, "Every day and every hour, Russian terror proves that Ukraine, together with its partners, must strengthen its air defenses." He says his country needs as many of them as possible.
A group of Russian warships reached Cuban waters today. They arrived ahead of planned military exercises in the Caribbean. 3 vessels and a nuclear-powered submarine are now in Havana, but intelligence indicates they are not carrying nuclear weapons, and a U.S. official says there is no direct threat to the United States. Some see this as a projection of strength amid growing tensions over Western support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, NATO members are adapting their nuclear capabilities to the current security environment. The alliance says recent months have brought dangerous nuclear rhetoric and more nuclear exercises from Russia. China is also modernizing its nuclear capabilities.
Making headlines here and in the UK, the discovery of the last ship belonging to famed Irish explorer Sir Ernest Shackleton.
It sank in 1962 and has now been found off the coast of Labrador. CTV's Garrett Berry reports.
Lots of excitement about today's announcement, especially among members of the research team, who says with this discovery, they're ready to bring the story of Ernest Shackleton back to life for a new generation.
6 decades have passed since the quest slipped out of sight and under the Labrador Sea. This week, new pictures using sonar technology reveal its exact location on the ocean floor. The boat, still remarkably intact and just 400 meters underwater, was tracked down by a team of shipwreck hunters on Sunday.
Everyone on our team who was present, it's a sense of euphoria. You work so hard. It's been, as Paul alluded to, many years that we've been planning and hoping to do this.
More than 100 years ago, Ernest Shackleton boarded the vessel, one of the great polar explorers, for a swan song expedition to Antarctica. He died on board, a heart attack that took him before his vessel reached its destination. It marked the end of an era.
But the whole idea of uncovering this history is to be able to tell it again to a new generation. His Shackleton's experience in Antarctica is timeless. We'll be talking about it for another 100 years.
The quest got to Labrador decades later, a part of a second life as a sealing vessel for its Norwegian owners. It sank in 1962, all crew abandoned ship after it got struck and damaged by thick sea ice. The search team was led by the Royal Canadian Geographic Society. They kept in contact with some of Shackleton's descendants, and on board, Torrey Top, whose father-in-law owned the quest.
It's incredible. I couldn't believe that that would be possible. One of the dreams was once to be able to locate where Quest was being.
The next step will be to head back to the wreck site with some underwater cameras to get an even better picture of this vessel. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
Coming up, new hope in the battle against debilitating migraines. A drug gets the green light for use in Canada to treat chronic sufferers. The details in moments.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, everyone would love to win the lottery, but if you do, make sure you remember where you bought your ticket. One man has a winning Lotto 649 ticket from over 1 year ago and still isn't able to claim his prize. I'll have my reports. That story is just ahead.
More sunshine, more warmth, and higher UV indexes across the board. And heading into the day tomorrow, they are at a 9 almost across the entire southern portion of the province, which is on the extreme version or almost extreme version of the scale. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, including just how warm it is going to get. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
Almost 6 million people in Ontario play the lottery frequently, all hoping for a chance to hit the jackpot.
If you play, you already know you should sign your name on the ticket, but you should also remember exactly where you bought it from. Pat Foran explains why on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Nathan. A Markham man bought a lottery ticket in April of last year and won over $1,000. But when he went to collect his prize, he can't remember where he bought the ticket from, so he's been unable to claim his winnings.
Right now, I cannot get the money.
Rirung Cho of Markham bought a 649 lottery ticket in April of 2023, but he only realized months later that he had a winner. He won almost $1,200 and submitted a claim with OLG to collect his prize last October, but has yet to receive it.
I tried email to them so many times and call them so many times, but he said, it's on the way, but no one sent to me. No one sent the check to me.
Cho's friend, Rala Chin, has been trying to help him collect his prize.
It said that if you win over 1,000,
you should get your check in the mail 6 to 8 weeks. But right now it's over 1 year.
Chin says the main problem is that OLG wants to know where Cho bought the winning ticket, and he can't remember.
OLG is asking him what location you bought it when it's months ago.
OLG says its main priority is making sure the right prize goes to the rightful owner of the winning ticket, but you should know if you win the lottery, you'll have to answer some questions. OLG said in a statement, when a winning ticket of $1,000 or more is presented for claim, the OLG Prize Center is required to determine the rightful ownership of that ticket. When claiming a prize, you may be asked, where did you purchase the ticket? When did you purchase the ticket? And did you purchase other lottery products such as Encore or another game at the same time?
Why is it taking so long when you have a senior specialist working on this?
After CTV News got in touch with OLG, they took another look at Cho's case. He's been informed his check has been processed and will be sent to him shortly in the mail, which was good news for him. And a good habit when buying lottery tickets is to get the receipt, which also serves as proof where and when you bought it. Also, don't write anything on a ticket other than your name, as that can also slow down the process if you win. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, looking at the forecast, things obviously warming up today and also for the next few days. And if you like the warm weather the way I do, I'm looking forward to it. I can wear shorts like every day.
It's going to be steamy, but there is a bit of a trade-off when it gets up that high, and there's the humidity, there's the potential, but it doesn't sound like we're in for a washout or anything.
Not a washout by any means. Heading into the day tomorrow, the chance of rain begins in the afternoon, but the heavier shower activity for us in the GTA and a good portion of southern Ontario is into the early evening. We have a beautiful hot day. The heat rises and a cold front slices through it, and with that comes the chance of rain. So it is going to be a beautiful day tomorrow, but we are watching for that chance of active weather, the heavier amount later on in the day. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Bit of a cloudy start to our day, but the sunshine made its way out later on, and we got pretty close to seasonal thanks to a southerly flow to the wind for the most part throughout our day. We're holding on to warmth really right across the province as we step into the evening, and then it gets really hot into the day tomorrow. 21 right now, feels like 23, a fairly moderate wind out there, making it comfortable to spend some time outside. Tonight, all that daytime heating not going anywhere. We'll sit at 16. We should be at 14. London will be at 17. We'll be at 16 through Niagara, 14 in Kingston, and 11 over through Bancroft. Now, into the day tomorrow, we begin a bit of a trend. We don't go too far above seasonal, but enough that it makes a difference when you factor in the humidex. We'll sit at 28. It'll feel like 33. Everybody's starting to feel that warmth really start to build in, and this is just the beginning. We're looking at this system kind of building right now through areas in northern Ontario. It will slice its way across. So the bulk of that low is way far north, but as it sinks its way down, that cold front literally cuts through all that heat, and when that happens, and we have some changeable winds, we have those right ingredients for some pop-up showers. Timing everything out. Again, throughout the majority of our day into the day today, it was quite beautiful. High pressure really keeping us nice and clear. Overnight, a few light clouds, and to begin the day tomorrow, scattered showers north and west of the city. We stay relatively sunny into the lunch hour, so beautiful if you want to get out for a bit of a fresh air break. As we head into about 6 o'clock, the line of showers goes kind of along those eastern shorelines of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, stretching up towards Bancroft. For Toronto, the GTA, this is more of a late afternoon, early evening situation. We get it kind of around 8 p.m. and then it moves out relatively quickly. And by midnight, we're almost done with it entirely. Getting into Friday, the chance of showers lingers north of the city. But to be fair, we are looking at a pretty beautiful end to the week. Temperature-wise, tomorrow, 28. We should be at 24. It'll feel into the low 30s. We get back towards seasonal as we step in towards our Friday and Saturdays. A beautiful weekend ahead of us for celebrating Dad, the father figure in your life, or just your weekend. We're looking at 28 on Father's Day, 20 for the low, but it's as we head into next week, we do reach into right now the criteria for a heat warning, and those humidex values Tuesday, Wednesday, feeling like 41. So when it gets that hot, you got to be careful to enjoy it safely. Nathan, I'll send things back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Also tonight, new insight into the transfer of patients into the nursing homes they did not choose. How the new legislation aimed at freeing up hospital beds is playing out with families.
In Canada, more than 2.7 million people suffer from debilitating migraines.
Now, a medication previously given for episodic migraines has been approved for chronic migraines. Here's our health reporter, Pauline Chan.
Shruti Shivaramakrishnan has been suffering from migraines since she was just 6.
Symptoms were very confusing, and I found it really hard to articulate because it felt like my tummy was expanding, contracting, lights were too bright, I couldn't, stand, I wanted to throw up, it was very hard. But the headaches came later on. And I was diagnosed when I was 13.
It affected her schooling, her social life, her family, and her career.
It feels like my head is imploding and exploding at the same time, if that makes sense. But also the light feels like daggers. Sound feels like someone's just attacking me.
And while a couple of medications help for short periods, she's still looking for a medication or therapy that offers more lasting relief.
Migraine is one of the most common conditions that exists, and by most estimates, we think about 12 to 18% of all Canadians have active migraine. But that doesn't account for the people who have what we might call inactive migraine.
Migraine specialist Dr. William Kingston says it's believed to have genetic causes triggered by situations within or outside the body.
So if someone is under more stress or has an exposure to a trigger, some people may attribute weather changes as a trigger for migraine.
A new drug known as Qulipta has just been made available in Canada for chronic migraines.
The generic name would be atogepant. So it is a specific migraine targeted treatment that's been available in Canada to some degree for about a year, but now we have it available for what we call chronic migraines, so people who have 15 or more headache days per month.
It prevents migraines by blocking certain receptors. Shruti is looking to try the new drug.
I just want something to work for me so I can be functional. I want to be a mom, I want to work, I want to be able to play with my daughter.
Pauline Chan, CTV News.
New figures show more than 400 patients have been forced into nursing homes not of their choosing since that became legal in this province. In 2022, the Ford government passed legislation aimed at opening up hospital space. One provision okayed the transfer of patients who no longer needed hospital-level care but hadn't found a space in a long-term care home. Those individuals can be sent to nursing homes not of their choosing, up to 70 kilometers away in southern Ontario. Numbers obtained by the Canadian Press show 424 patients have been discharged in that way to date, at an increasing rate in recent months. Hospitals can charge patients $400 a day if they flat out refuse to move. The Ministry of Health says 7 people have faced those fees. At least one family has refused to pay.
If you spend several hours a day on the couch watching TV, a new study says you're likely harming your chances of aging in a healthy manner. U.S. researchers analyzed data on more than 45,000 people aged 50 plus in the year 1992. 20 years later, their health was compared with their sitting habits at work, at home, and specifically watching television. Each additional 2 hours of sitting to watch TV was associated with a 12% decrease in living to age 70 without major chronic disease, memory impairments, or physical or mental health issues. Experts say combining or replacing even an hour of TV time with light exercise can have real benefits.
Questions are swirling tonight around a sudden change in leadership at one of Canada's most prominent performing arts organizations. In a rare mid-season shakeup, the Canadian Opera Company announced today that David C. Ferguson had been appointed interim general director. That put an end to the leadership of now former General Director Perrin Leach, who'd been in that role for 3 years. A statement from the COC Board of Directors said Leach's departure was by mutual agreement. It comes a few weeks after he revealed the Opera Company's 2024-2025 season, and as the organization faces ongoing financial pressures. The oldest member of popular K-pop group BTS has been discharged from South Korea's army after 18 months of military service. Jin became the first member of the group to wrap up the mandatory national service that put their music careers on hold. The 31-year-old enlisted in the military in December of 2022. The final 4 members began their service a year later. The band is expected to reunite next year.
Fans are getting a first look today at a new upcoming Paddington Bear movie.
Aunt Lucy! Paddington, we're here! Aunt Lucy!
7 years after the last Paddington Bear movie, this one follows him on a journey to his native Peru, joined by the Brown family. But a mystery sends them on an unexpected journey through the Amazon rainforest. Paddington in Peru stars Ben Whishaw, Olivia Colman, Antonio Banderas, and several other familiar faces and voices. It has a UK release set for November.
More than 5 years after the Game of Thrones series finale, another prequel show set to become a reality.
A Targaryen who sits the Iron Throne is not just a king or a queen.
HBO's House of the Dragon is also set in the same world as Game of Thrones, although its events take place a few hundred years earlier. Now, series author George R.R. Martin confirms work is being done on a separate saga set 1,000 years in the past. HBO previously said it would commission 5 prequel concepts, but it's not clear if that's still the plan. Season 2 of House of the Dragon debuts Sunday.
After the break, Blue Jays fans say goodbye to Kevin Biggio. The 29-year-old utility player is on his way to L.A. We have the trade details just ahead.
Feeling the love for Father's Day.
From gift ideas to a feast for the eyes and stomach, we'll help you plan the perfect celebration for father figures of all kinds.
On CP24 Breakfast, where Toronto gets its everything every morning.
We have a return to more seasonal weather this evening, so if you're heading out for a walk or maybe playing a pickup game, it will be a much warmer evening. Heading into Thursday, it stays warm, but unsettled weather rolls in. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your 7-day forecast.
About time somebody put the consumer first.
It's so convenient to spend your money foolishly.
Updating our top stories, Ontario's beer stores may soon have the chance to sell lottery tickets, just as convenience stores get the opportunity to sell beer. The move is part of a $225 million plan to ease the transition and prevent layoffs and store closures.
Item number 1 is housing, and I've already spoken to the commissioner, and he's pulling together what he considers who he considers the best developers and builders that build in Mississauga. We're putting a task force together. We're going to start the day after I'm sworn in.
Mississauga's new mayor sat down with CTV News to talk about the city's future. Carolyn Parrish says housing will be a top priority. The former MP and city councillor says she's already spoken with the premier and doesn't plan to wait for her swearing-in date to get down to work.
We're extremely disappointed, and we're very concerned with the future of West Island now.
And opponents of Ontario Place's redevelopment have suffered a setback. A legal challenge to force the government to conduct an environmental assessment has been rejected. The group Ontario Place for All says the move will not stop them from continuing their opposition to a provincial plan to allow a spa and water park to be built on the site.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you ever have a news tip, photos, or video or breaking news, let us know.
Canadian consumers and businesses are getting less and less choice when it comes to which bank they use. Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg has the latest in business.
Hello there. Shares in Canadian Western Bank jumped about 70% today after National Bank agreed to buy the Alberta-based lender for shares valued at about $5 billion. The deal comes months after Royal Bank completed its $13.5 billion purchase of HSBC's Canadian assets. Shares in Laurentian Bank, which failed to find a buyer last year, and lender EQB also rose today amid speculation that more takeovers are coming. Canadian Western shares closed at just under $42, a fat discount of about $7 to the value of the offer on paper. That reflects uncertainty as to when or if the deal will go through, and also the risk that National Bank shares will drop. On the markets, the Canadian dollar was at 72.88 US cents, up about 1/5 cent. WTI oil, the North American benchmark, traded at $78.15, up 60 cents. Western Canadian Select oil was at $64.05, down 27 cents. And the TSX Composite ended at 21,961.55, up just over 74 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Apple once again became the world's most valuable company today, although just barely. At one point, Apple's shares had climbed 3.7% to hit a record high and put the iPhone maker's market value at $3.24 trillion US. That was slightly ahead of fellow tech giant Microsoft at $3.23 trillion. Apple's stock prices have been climbing in the wake of its developers conference this week, including a long-awaited move to artificial intelligence offerings.
Meanwhile, a new court order is requiring Amazon to hand over new information about reviews and ratings on its website. It was requested by Canada's Competition Bureau as part of a probe into the company. The focus was to uncover potential activity that might reduce competition in a market. It comes as online platforms have seen a wave of complaints challenging the authenticity of some reviews and bestseller labels. Amazon said it's collaborating with the Bureau and committed to fighting fake reviews.
As governments push for a massive acceleration in home building, a new report suggests it'll have to be accompanied by a boost in infrastructure spending. The Canadian Urban Institute estimates the average cost of infrastructure needed to support housing will likely exceed $100,000 for each newly built home. That's to cover resources ranging from water lines, roads, and public transit to schools, fire halls, and recreational facilities. The report noted municipalities often try to avoid debt or tax hikes to cover capital costs. It highlighted alternatives like moving away from prepaid development charges and leaning more on private capital.
Fans and colleagues are mourning the loss of one of the greatest to ever grace a basketball court. Jerry West has passed away at the age of 86. The NBA says West was a basketball genius, a defining figure in the league for more than 60 years. He was selected to the Basketball Hall of Fame 3 times as a player and an executive. West was nicknamed Mr. Clutch for his late-game exploits, and he won both NBA and Olympic titles. He was also an All-Star in all 14 of his NBA seasons. West was later the general manager of 8 Laker championship teams. His silhouette is considered to be the basis of the NBA logo.
The Blue Jays were looking to win their series against Milwaukee this afternoon. Toronto was down by 4, but fought back to load the bases in the 9th.
Can Kirk keep it going? Center field and well hit. On the track, it is caught.
Alejandro Kirk's sac fly made it a 1-run game, but the Jays would not get any more, and the Brewers went on to win 5-4. Toronto hosts Cleveland on Friday night.
And before the game, the Jays confirmed they've traded Cavan Biggio. The versatile 29-year-old is heading west after Toronto designated him for assignment on Friday. He's joining the NL West leading Los Angeles Dodgers. In return, the Jays get minor league pitcher Braden Fisher. Biggio spent 6 seasons with Toronto. Just ahead, special delivery, a brand new ride filled with even more generosity inside. The story behind this set of wheels rolling out to fight hunger.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special hello to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
The fight against hunger is hitting the road with a new campaign to help the Claire Lee Food Bank in Scarborough.
Pure Later donated a truck and thousands of pounds worth of food. CTV's John Musselman has more.
Pure Later made a special delivery today to help fight hunger in Scarborough. It has donated a truck that can be used to pick up and deliver food to those in need. It was provided to an organization called Feed Scarborough, a nonprofit food bank on Warden Avenue near Eglinton.
So right now, around 42% of our clients have at least one full-time job, and still they need to come to food banks.
The charity says they are serving more than 7,000 clients a week at 6 different food bank locations. It is mainly staffed by volunteers.
There are people who need food, and they don't want to have to go through hoops and jump through things, and it's very easy here for them to volunteer. No questions are asked about their income, their social backgrounds.
We are also seeing brand new refugees who are waiting for their social insurance number to come and getting their work permits to come, but they need access to support and food.
Almost every day 200 plus people.
Officials with Purolator say the company is expanding its efforts to further combat the fight against hunger. It also donated 1,000 pounds of food at today's event.
It really encompasses our culture at Purolator. So we're a very dedicated team when it comes to delivering promises, and that includes promises such as food for hungry families. So it's become really ingrained in us to be able to do this and be able to help.
Purolator's Tackle Hunger campaign has provided 22 million pounds of food to Canadian food banks since the program was launched 2 decades ago. John Musselman, CTV News in Scarborough.
We know there's a big need. Great work.
And nature is delivering the heat tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. And then some. We get above seasonal. So we had a really cool start to the week. Today was kind of nice. Tomorrow's a little bit hotter. And then as we get into the long range forecast, we get into the 30s. And we're looking at temperatures that can be dangerous when it gets that hot when you factor in the humidex. So as we get into the summer season, this is your reminder to check on your more vulnerable loved ones and your pets as well. But for today, it is comfortable, right? We're looking at a fairly clear end to our day. And it is temperature-wise, kind of still in that sweet spot to be outside without the layer that you probably had over the past few days. We're at 21. It feels like 23 here. The same through Ottawa. Still pretty warm into that southwestern corner. And as we head into the next few days, you'll watch those oranges, those reds start to seep into our area. When it gets that hot and those dark reds show up, that's how you know it is very serious. So looking ahead to next week as we prepare for the summer season, just prepare accordingly, friends. And a reminder about the new Lotto 649 with 2 big jackpots to be won on 1 ticket. Tonight's classic jackpot is $5 million. And the new Gold Ball jackpot is $64 million. You can head to olg.ca for more information.
Thank you, Jess. That's it for us, but be sure to join Morella Fernandez tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.